Hi, this is Jane Howington, and welcome to North of 60. I'm here to relieve Heidi, who's taking a break, and she will be back in 2 months. And very excited to get back, but very happy to have a break. Today we have with us two public safety officials. I've asked them if they'd come and help talk about some of the things that we don't ever think about in public safety that we need to do or should pay attention to, that unfortunately we don't even think about it until it's kind of too late. So we're here to talk about some big things, but also to talk about some little things. So I have with me Kevin Nelson from the fire department, and I have Detective Dinda here from the police department. And we're going to start off talking, I want to give them a little bit of a brief time to talk about what they do, and particularly when talking about public safety for seniors. And then we're going to get into a bit of discussion with some of the things that I know I never really thought about until I started hearing some of these presentations. So let's start off with Kevin and see if he can talk a little bit about what he does and how he goes about helping us understand safety from a fire and EMS related spot.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Kevin Nelson with the Hudson Fire Department. I'm excited to be part of some of the different programs that we have. We have our Safe Seniors program where we can provide Knox boxes, carbon monoxide detectors, and we've just recently signed a contract with the Red Cross where we can continue providing smoke detectors.
Oh, good.
So I brought some samples of things on the Knox box. Is just a very secured key box that we can put onto your house. It comes at no charge to you, and we have a very secured master key. Your key would then go inside that box, and it allows us rapid entry in the event of an emergency.
So a friend of mine who's in her 80s had just come home from the hospital from a broken shoulder, and she was walking through her house and fell and broke her hip. She likes to practice safety, so she locked the house. So she was locked in, and when she was able to get to a spot where she could call, she couldn't get to the door to let people in. So this would have been a situation that would have really helped.
Absolutely, and it goes the full circle. Not only is it the rapid ability to enter, but it's also the ability to secure the house afterwards. So if we have to break a door, we need to make sure that that door is secured. So we either have to contact a police officer to stay on scene until we can get that door secured, or we have to leave an EMS or a fire person on scene to maintain security of that until we can get the door secured and locked back up. This allows us to simply just relock the door and then go on with the emergency.
Great.
And then kind of tied to that is an ice pack, and it has all of the contact information. In that case, if for some reason your friend wasn't able to then share medical history or anything, our staff is trained to go to the fridge or freezer and look for this information, so then it gives us all that background history to know how to care for them.
So that's inside your freezer?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
and I think an awful lot of people don't realize that there's a standard place that they can put this. Now, police often are first responders that get there before the ambulance.
Correct.
And so
we look for
you
it
do
there
that
too.
as well. So this is really important. Now, where would people get these?
So you can stop at the fire station. We can give them out. They have them right at the front desk, right at the front door of the fire station. I know when we start our program and we come to install the Knox box, a lot of times we'll have that with it. The other big takeaway is if you already have one, a lot of times medicines and medical conditions change over just a short span of time. A good recommendation, kind of like back when we had to remind everyone at time change on let's change batteries, let's just make sure that
to do that
is updated as well.
New year, new prescriptions.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
And then a couple other things that we have we do have the carbon monoxide detectors that were part of that same program. Again, it was all grant funded, so we don't have to charge anything for it. It's a matter of contact us and let us know. And I encourage if you have neighbors, if you have friends that don't have it or don't know, I would love to be able to get out into the houses. We still are always amazed as to how many homes we go to that the people have not heard about our program. So if we can share that and spread that news.
So I
would
listened to
be-
you, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and you were talking about that, and I was kind of bowing my head because I don't have carbon monoxide detectors in my house yet. I don't think you're going to
can
let me
change
get
that.
away with that for a long time. So I wanted to ask you to, again, also talk a little bit about, what you do in trying to educate and help people understand all the little things that they need to do. But we talked about you often being there when there's an emergency call that comes into the dispatch center. The dispatch dispatches fire, EMS, police, whoever they need to, but you usually respond as well.
Correct. My name is Detective Dinda. I've been with the department about 19 years. I'm currently in the Detective Bureau, so I'm in charge of investigating crimes that have already occurred. But you're correct, we do have officers that will respond. Most of the time, they get there first because they're out on the roads already, and they get things handled till fire or EMS show up.
Right. Which is often when people are most nervous.
Correct.
If there's, they don't know what's happening to them, or they're in pain, or something. So inside our houses, I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, but inside our houses, as we get older, we often acquire a lot of hand-me-downs. Lamps are a good thought, and then lamps have old wiring. What happens?
And our concerns are always just as products age or as things change on, I always try and bring things that we've found out in the community, and a lot of times lamps have cords that are designed just for that lamp, but as they age or as chairs get placed on them, or if they're in a pinch point, because there's never an outlet where you want your lamp.
Correct.
You always have to try and get it to something. So anytime that there's wires exposed, that then produces an area where it could start a fire, or it could cause other issues that if you were attempting to unplug it, you could also be injured that way.
Shocked.
Some of the other things, especially with the older lamps, not only is it the older wiring, but a lot of times it's the older bulbs. And one of the prime examples on a lot of the older lamps had a three-way feature. So you could have that low setting where if you didn't really need it very bright, or you could take it up higher. When they introduced bulbs like this, they were only designed to be an on-off light. They were never designed to have it go progress. And so you can see the top of the bottom is kind of that white color. The top has that brownish color.
Yes.
And that's indicative of this light bulb was starting to overheat, but it was not lighting up. So a lot of times that three-way switch, they would cause this light bulb to not light up, so you would think it was off. So if when you were turning off the lamp the previous time, it might go that extra click. It's actually on. These are trying to heat up. It's just not lighting up. It'll cause that light bulb to heat up and then fail. A lot of times when it fails, the hot product comes down, and if you had anything under the lamp, that's then what catches on fire. So those are some of those things that just that awareness of knowing how the lights work and what bulbs are appropriate to put in which lamp.
Don't use those bulbs in three-way lights.
Correct. So it needs to be a bulb that was designed for that three-way lamp. And one of the other issues with these, a lot of times they're listed for damp location. So people assume they can use it on their outdoor lights. And insects are attracted to the light. They'll build up in all the little grooves, and then they too can catch on fire because they'll dry out. So it's just difficult because we used to have an incandescent bulb. You could pretty much put it anywhere and it was fine. When you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Walmart, it's aisles and aisles of light bulbs, and that's because they've become so specific to do a certain job that it isn't really a one and done, this light bulb can do it all.
So much to understand. Life gets more complicated as you age up, over 60, and you have to deal with all of these security and things. And speaking of security, I'm going to jump ahead for a minute and talk about scams, because I want to make sure we keep a little bit of time for that, since it's such a big issue here.
Okay. One of the easiest things to talk about with scams is, to simplify it down, is no government agency, no store, no official place will ever call you, email you, text you, and ask you to wire money or buy gift cards to pay for something. A lot of the scams we see that we deal with are somebody's contacted by somebody claiming to be, from the IRS, from Social Security. The other big one is that their grandchildren are in trouble and they need to pay for something.
I've seen that.
Anything like that where they need immediate wire transfers or gift card purchases is an immediate red flag that it's a scam. And the big thing is, you can call the police department at any time to verify, this is the call I just got, does this sound, and we can direct you accordingly.
Now, I think it wasn't that long ago that somebody got a call from someone that was representing himself from the fire department, asking for money, and that would be just such an easy thing to do. That this person happened to be, aware enough to call and ask, and the chief said, I think nobody from the fire department will ever call you and ask you for money on the phone.
Same thing. Nobody from a store will call and say you owe them. If that's the case, it's most likely a scam.
I got one the other day on my computer where all of a sudden my computer had a big thing on it, and it said, your computer's been locked. You need to call this number. Do not turn your computer off.
Yes.
You need to call this number right away. And they were representing themselves as Microsoft.
Yes, and they'll want you to either give them, credit card information again.
Or they get access into all my accounts.
Yes, that's the other thing. You'll let them have access into your computer, and they'll take everything out of it. Again, the easiest thing is if you have a call like that or something like that, you can always pick up the phone, call the non-emergency phone number for the police department, and then they will either have an officer come out, or sometimes they'll just tell you right over the phone that sounds like it's a scam, and protect you from that.
One of the other things that the police department's done that's been very beneficial, but I'm not sure how many people know about it, is your few parking spots out front for safe transfers. So if somebody's selling something on eBay.
Yes, Facebook, eBay. We have, I believe it's 2 parking spaces that are signed and dedicated. You're more than welcome to come there, meet the person there. Then you can either handle your business out in the parking lot if you feel comfortable, or we also have the lobby area where they can come in and exchange the money and the items that they're selling.
And I think that that's very important for everybody to know, that there is that safe location to be able to not give away your personal information.
Correct.
Or your personal address.
And a lot of times if somebody doesn't want to meet you there, that may be a reason for that they don't feel comfortable coming to the police department because there's something going on that they don't want us to know about.
So Kevin, power strips, keeping back with the cords and things, I was very taken aback when you did a recent program and talked about how they still can burn through the floor if you have them in certain locations. Can you talk a little about that?
And the biggest fear that we have is, I think so many people have, I don't want to say it's a false sense of security. Power strips are fantastic. They do an amazing job of protecting a lot of things, but there are times that they're not necessarily used appropriately. So many times people believe that it's safe to use the power strip and then plug another power strip into it because now it's got to be twice as safe.
Wow.
And they'll use it to go great distances, just power strip into power strip. The problem with that is they're designed to be plugged directly into the receptacle. The other problem that people will typically run into is if you're putting something that is a high draw item, it exceeds what that power strip can handle. Many times, like space heaters are a prime example of that. We find it in some office settings as we're doing inspections, but we'll find it in a lot of homes where people are doing that because they want that protection of, okay, this will make my house safe, so I'm going to put my heater into the power strip and then plug it in, and that way if something goes wrong, I should be okay. And the downside is that power strip can just fail because of just the draw of power that's coming through it. So sometimes they can break, and so the power strip has that on-off switch designed into it that in a perfect world it would fail first and then not allow that to get back to an electric panel or even to the receptacle. Sometimes
Not.
It doesn't fail fast enough that it would, and again, it's not that there's a manufacturer defect, it was just there was more power coming through that system than what was originally designed to allow that to happen. And
It's so surprising because you exactly what you said. You think even if I can reach the outlet, I'm twice as safe if I put a power strip in between that has that that off switch.
And so again, it's the biggest thing is making sure that whatever you're plugging into it is designed to be able to reach into that. If it's a lamp, if it's a TV, most things are designed that you can be just fine and you can plug the TV, the VCR, the Roku stick into it and you won't have any issue. It's when it starts to be those bigger items, the higher draw. We've had people where they've plugged in refrigerators and freezers, and not only is it potentially unsafe, there are times that breaker, the switch on it, might do exactly what it was designed for. The downside is if that was your freezer, now all of your freezer things don't have the power to it and it just shuts the freezer off.
Wow.
So that's kind of that balancing act of we want to make sure that we're plugging the right thing in the right place. And it's, if you're not sure, you can always give us a question. We're not necessarily electricians, but a lot of times I can answer the safety questions on, sometimes it's just let's rearrange how things are set up to make sure that it's plugged directly in.
And one of the nice things about the fire department is you do have a lot of expertise on staff for plumbing issues or electrical issues that can help each other. And
Yes.
I know that when I first moved here and I moved into this house, I kept going out the back door and I'd smell gas. I didn't understand it because I had the valve turned off straight up and down. And I finally had, the chief came over at one point when I finally called him and said, I really smell gas. And he said, well, in your natural gas, the valve shuts this way, whereas in your heating duct, it shuts this way. So many little things that we just don't recognize. I brought some props, and I did want to bring these up because I think this is another aha moment for us. I think this is when we first moved into our house, we of course got this for our kitchen, and I was so upset with my husband because he insisted on mounting it on the wall. And of course, decoration-wise, that wasn't the nicest thing. But I had to go home and tell him he was right. But you talked a little bit about this, and then you can talk about this one. How should people use these, or not use them, but how should people have them available, and how do you know whether it's still good or not?
Excellent questions. On the nice thing with extinguishers, when I teach extinguishers, I like to teach that it's an exit tool. So use it to get yourself and others safely out. If, when you make it to the door and you're in a safe position where if the extinguisher fails or if it's just too big of a fire, you can step out the door, close the door, and get out. When I fight fire, I'm never doing it by myself. I always have other firefighters with me. I wear all the protective equipment. But it is a great tool to slow down a fire. It's a great tool to use to get yourself and others out. In a kitchen scenario, kitchens are typically the most likely place to have a fire. It's great to have one nearby. You can spray. If that fire has just started, many times this extinguisher can put out that fire. Our recommendation is always, if you use an extinguisher, contact the fire department. We need to come out.
Absolutely.
We need to make sure that everything's okay. My other favorite location, because I like to say that it's an exit tool, is wherever you sleep. In the event of an emergency, if that alarm goes off, it tells you now's the time to get out. To know how old it is, many times the date is right on the bottom of the extinguisher. Sometimes in the world's smallest print, they'll put it on the sticker. Typical recommendation is that it should be a 10-year product. After 10 years, it's probably time to look at getting a new one.
Okay.
You can take it, shake it up and down. If you hear a thump, that's indicative
bad.
that it's kind of settled into a clump, and sometimes it breaks it up just by moving it. Other times, yeah, it's probably time to get a new one. Many people are concerned that these are heavy, and not that it's a substitute for a fire extinguisher, but it's a fantastic tool because it's very simple to use. On this one, you can shake it up, you can spray it, and it can knock the fire down. But again, this one gives you a little more time frame. It gives you a little more ability to get a distance back. This one is one of those, if you have something on fire on the stovetop, something along those lines, you can spray it. I'm a big fan of the little bit bigger version. I'm a big fan, I have to admit, I'm kind of lazy. A big fan of a lid on a pot or a pan, and you don't even have to clean up any of the mess. Many times that smothers the fire, and then it takes care of it. But if more than one thing's on fire, if it's a bigger fire, we absolutely want to make sure you've got a fire extinguisher that can really slow it down, but more importantly, to help get you out.
So this little spray bottle is better than nothing, but the fire department doesn't really recommend them.
Correct.
There's not, like you have to shake it for a
Yeah.
little while before you can spray it, things
Yep.
like that.
So absolutely, again, the tried and true. And the biggest thing with it is the one that can do all choices. So it's an ABC extinguisher. When I teach little ones, I teach it as ashes, bubbles, and current. So this is going to be able to take care of anything that turns to ash when it burns, anything that bubbles when it burns, like oils, gasolines. And most importantly, it's not going to hurt you if you were to spray it on an outlet.
Okay.
It doesn't conduct that electricity back through you.
And once again, even though the fire department's called and you come, oftentimes the police are there first. I know we had a little chimney fire a couple weeks ago, and people are going to think the way I live must be horrible. But so my mother we had a fire in our fireplace, and she took a cardboard box that she was done with, and she just went and plunked it on top, and it went right up the chimney, and then it was stuck up there because of the cover. But the police department got there first and actually helped inform us about we need to get out of the house, and kind of did the inspection and so on. So you need to make sure you guys are all trained in that as well.
Correct, and we have a fire extinguisher in every cruiser
Okay.
to help with that till they arrive.
Okay.
Either slow it down or keep it from becoming something bigger.
And again, for us, it's such a wonderful thing as soon as you hear that the officer's on scene, because many times they can give us that additional information on, yeah, we've knocked it down, or this is a little bit bigger, and that allows us to adjust accordingly before we even get there. We can call for additional resources, and so
That's great to know.
it's wonderful to have that teamwork
That's the
of all
second
of us.
thing we do is after, is handle it at first, and then second thing we do is we try to provide them information to help their response and what they need.
Great. That's so wonderful to have you all working so closely together. I have to bring this up.
Okay?
You have a site in the police department that people can bring their old medicines to.
Correct.
But this is a different thing.
So we have these available too. We also hand these out at the, twice a year we do the drug take back at Acme, and we hand these out. Now the purpose of these is, it has a few directions on the back. Once you put your medicines in here, take them out of the capsules, throw them in here, you mix this with some water, and then this hardens and becomes safe to just throw away in the trash.
Okay.
The big confusion with these a lot of times we see is people use these, then they still bring them to the department and throw them in the medicine box. There's no need to do that. Once you use this, just throw it away in the garbage and it's safe.
Good. That's wonderful to know. And those are free as well.
Correct, yes.
So anyone that wants, if you have old medicines or you've changed your medicines, this is one way to do it. The other way is bring your medicines and put them in there. As far as your house, knock boxes, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, and these pouches are all free of charge through a grant program. And I think you'll come out and kind of help walk around the house and help people understand what they need to do.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Now, the last thing, we neglected to talk when we were talking about scams, the impact it has in Hudson. What have scams done in Hudson just recently?
I mean,
I think there's an amount.
they've been devastating for some people. We've had, unfortunately, victims taken for over hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, the easiest thing, we could spend hours talking about all the different kinds of scams and everything, but the easiest thing is if anybody's asking you that's claiming they're from a government agency or a store or trying to sound like a legitimate place, none of them are going to ask you to wire money, buy gift cards to pay a fine or a fee. The other big one is nobody's going to call you and say that, you know, they're going to send you, if you bought something, they're going to send you a check if it comes, that the check comes with, and it's beyond what they are supposed to be giving you, and they tell you, oh, I made a mistake, just cash the check and send me. That's another big one where by the time your bank realizes it's a fake check, you've already sent the money back to them, and now you're out both.
Now you're out. And passwords are getting to be a problem as well.
Yes. Typically, we don't see a lot of that where they're asking you for your passwords, but we see a lot of where they'll call you and say, and they need you to verify your credit card number. Your bank, your credit card company will never do that. If somebody calls and says, you know, they're from Visa or whoever, and they want you to verify your card number, do not give them that either. They should already have that if that's true.
And I think that we still have a problem. I know for the last several years we've had a problem with car thefts. Is that still ongoing?
Yes, the big thing we find out with that is when we figure out when the car was stolen is most of them are always the keys were left in the vehicle overnight and it was left unlocked, or the key fob was left in the center console. And
I think as we get older and tend to forget where we put things, it makes sense, we think.
Unfortunately, we have groups that come from out of other cities and they go house to house in the middle of the night, and that's what they're looking for, is a car. The other big scam we're seeing right now is check fraud. We're trying to tell everybody, do not mail any checks for bill payments or any kind of checks for birthday. Do not mail any checks from your house. Either if you absolutely have to mail a check, take it into the post office and hand it to the clerk. If you can, sign up for your bank's online bill pay. A lot of times people think, oh, it's not safe because it's online. I don't want to put my... If you do your online bill pay through your bank, it is much safer than actually writing a check to pay a bill.
Interesting. So for presents for grandkids, it's not a good idea to send a gift card.
Gift cards, cash, checks, anything. Try to send it another way. I know may not be a lot of people familiar with it, but there's certain ways to send money electronically through your bank to people that you intend.
Well, we're winding down on time, and it's gone so fast. I really appreciate it. But I do also want to mention to everybody that I think both of you had said this. If you have any questions, call us. And I don't think that people really understand that the fire department, the police department, our public safety people are there for education and
24/7.
assistance 24/7. It's not just when you have an emergency. So I hope that we'll be able to make sure that you can find those numbers. They're non-emergency numbers. People will get back to you, and they love coming out and helping. They're the most wonderful customer service people that our government has locally, that touches you every day and things you do. So on behalf of all of us over 60, north of 60 citizens, we thank you so much. And if there's anything I didn't think about asking you, any other big things, we'll just have to have you come back.
Okay.
Perfect.
That would be great. Thanks again so much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.